Yep.
First workshop is the how to improve infrastructure shortfalls in historic neighborhoods. Okay, Mr. Brott.
All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I'm hoping that some more citizens will end up joining us today. But if not, we'll have a candid conversation and talk amongst ourselves. I've given everybody a rough agenda looking thing to sort of show what the plan is to go over tonight for our conversation, help guide it. I'm going to try and touch on, and you'll see in the packet, we've got some of the things that are different attachments here. We have some information on CRAs, some information on joining properties, and I also have given you all updated cost estimates for what the work would do. And when we go through this later, Alan Wise isn't here yet. He was just across the street.
Yeah, he's on phone.
Okay. And Alan put the prices together, but it's the cost of doing each of the projects individually and the cost of doing the projects if we do them all at once, and talk about some of the ideas for how we might be able to present this to the citizens and what we can do with that. To start the conversation off, I'd like to bring up Mr. Cleve Fleming, Director of Public Works, to give us a little bit of background of what we've done and some of the things we're talking about doing in Wakulla Gardens. So also, a side note, I wanted to talk about all of our historic neighborhoods with this, but in the end, as we were working on this, it ended up focusing much more on Wakulla Gardens. Some of these solutions, if they can work there, might be able to be applied to some of the additional historic neighborhoods, such as Griner's Addition, which is another one of our troubled historic neighborhoods overplatted. But on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Cleve, and Alan Wise may join him to give some additional insight. But tell us what we've done and what we're talking about doing and what's going on.
Well, I just told to have a very short presentation, so if Alan don't show up, it's going to be a very short presentation here. Over the past several years, as most of you are on the board, we have tried different times to have workshops to try to get a plan of action for Wakulla Gardens, and then the plan of action has always been to provide the infrastructure, stormwater, and paving, and they all kind of work hand in hand, and as you'll see here, the cost is so high, it makes it almost impossible to do. And over the years of the growth out there, the most major improvement we've made out in Wakulla Gardens is, and you probably all heard about the dust complaints, was back during Tropical Storm Faye. We had flooding and the roads became impassable. Then what we call the next year, we had the winter rains, and where we had just a period of very extremely wet winter rains that basically equaled the flooding that we had with Faye. And again, the roads in Wakulla Gardens were impassable. And we went to FEMA to ask for some help, and they offered some help to stabilize the road. But the part of the grant was that it had to be all the roads. And the number that they threw out was $400,000, and we had to take $400,000 and try to do something to 21 miles of road. And we come up with an idea of putting this 57 lime rock stone on the roads, and we talked about this during the approval process. This is a grant come before the board, and it was, I think we even had a workshop on it. We put this aggregate on the road with full intention at some point in time coming and incorporating it into the road bed and using that to stabilize the road as our base to come back and pave over it. And unfortunately, after we put this down, I think this morning in the news it said we're approaching 23 inches of rain deficit for this year, so it is dusty. And we've had some ideas of going in there and trying to mix the material now, but it's so dry we can't mix the material. You've got to have some moisture in there, or else it just won't mix proper. So we've got several ideas, and we're going to talk about those ideas. Alan's here now. Later on about we got some ideas to try to address the dust problem. But I can tell you, I know the dust is aggravating, and I won't try to minimize the effect of it, but it has improved those roads to the point that we're able to keep the profile of the roads and the profile of the ditch. And what rain we have had this year has been a concentrated rainfall in a short period of time, and we've gotten away from the localized flooding, other than one spot, which is at the bottom of a hill, which we couldn't do anything about that anyway. But it has helped the overall road conditions, but it is dusty, and we're going to have a proposal here and talk about it in a few minutes about possibly applying the material and trying to stabilize the rock that will hold down the dust, and the very inexpensive process that we finally have come up with. But if y'all got any questions on kind of where we're at, but I'll turn this over to Alan Wise and let him kind of give the cost of the infrastructure.
You put down 57.
Yes.
Was that all that they put down, all that rock?
That's a 57. It was I think it was 38,000 tons.
Yeah.
It was 38,000 tons. And this was and that was just material costs. Public Works we had a truck. We bought the material, had it transported to the landfill site. The Public Works actually applied it to the road. So the cost of that, putting it on those roads, were substantially more than the $400,000, because but you already had us under contract. So those days we're putting rocks out, we're just not working somewhere else in the county. So it was but you did get a good dollar value for a material that will at some point in time be incorporated into that road and make it a better road bed out there. Okay.
Alan Wise is going to come up, and he may touch a little bit on some of the things we've done in the past, but I think Cleve covered most of that. If you'll turn in the packet that everyone was able to pick up, you have some cost estimates that he's provided us. The first few pages, it's the last set of attachments in the packet. And the first few sets are going through each of the projects individually, and the last page of the packet is the total cost. And he could touch on each of these, and also if you could talk about the area. I know one of these is only a small part of the community.
Right. The portion in Wakulla Gardens that doesn't have water, that is a portion of Unit 1. I think that's east of Broken Bow, but there are about 1,200 lots that don't currently have water. And I know that you guys are probably all familiar with that situation. Talcon serves them. But if the county were to take under the project of putting water in those lots, or putting water in the subdivision to serve those lots, and I did include that cost. Based on the information that we have available, we have some sewer design from Utah. We have, of course, we've done a portion of the stormwater design, lengths of roadways times the cost of a typical section. We made the best assumptions we could and came up with some budgetary numbers here. You'll notice that if you undertake all these projects at one time, it's a little bit less expensive. It's just because you don't have to do multiple coordinations. You don't have to verify surveys more than once, things like that. There's also a savings whenever you do it all together, and that you don't have to undo some of the previous construction. And I know that's something that you guys have discussed on more than one occasion. As far as the cost estimates go, if y'all have any specific questions, I'm happy to try to answer those. Another point, I got an email this morning. We've been chasing a FEMA grant for about $2.7 million for that stormwater project. This morning I got an email from FEMA that said, okay, we're done reviewing the application for completeness. We're submitting it for it to be ranked. So hopefully in the very near future we'll know the outcome of that.
Good.
Is there anyone with the grant? I don't know who's overseeing that. Are there people that we should reach out to and express additional contacts or anything?
We've made those contacts. We've made contacts through Congressman Sutherland's office. We've got support letters from lots of people. Commissioner Stewart has been heavily involved in that. But
Okay.
Thank you.
Alan, where did you get 800 lots to be acquired? Was that
The stormwater cost estimate that I did is probably the one that has the most assumptions in it. What I did was look at the area that we did the detailed design for it, and I could do a detailed cost estimate, saw that it was about 10% of all of the gardens, and just multiplied my detailed cost estimate out by 10. So there are, the stormwater is probably the one with the most assumptions in it.
How many lots are there out there?
3,738
Total lots and
Total
all
lots.
units?
in all units. About 970 of them, or there's about 970 homes, more than those. Some homes sit on 2 lots, so some of those 970 homes comprise more than 1 lot.
So maybe half of it's built out? A third? A third.
Yeah.
You're saying some of them are 2 lots, so I'm assuming maybe more than a third.
So 3730 is the number of occupied lots?
No, sir, that's the number of platted lots.
Total platted lots?
Yes.
Because the 800 is
And-
more like 20% of the total number of lots.
Right. Well, that was where I got the 800 lots for purchases. We needed 80 to purchase to do that first phase of the stormwater improvements, and so there's another thing that's not included in there is that I think the county owns about 40 lots in the gardens, and so those could be backed out.
So what should we be looking at? Can we just stall for a moment on the stormwater issue? If we get is it a 2.7 million? Is that what we're looking at? That's a drop in the bucket, but which one do we look at to see how much it costs total to get the stormwater? What's the total cost?
Total cost of stormwater,
12.4.
that's right, 12.2, 9.4 in construction costs.
So the 2.7 could be used then for, we've got design, right?
Design is done on that, yes.
Okay.
Buy lots.
Just buy some more lots.
The 2.7 is meant to take the portion that you guys have already designed through lot acquisition, construction, closeout, everything.
Okay.
And as we do with everything, we might be able to push that into a larger area than just the 7 or 6 critical basins.
Whether I'm not if I'm here another year or another however long, I'd like to see it. I'm hoping this continues where we get this 2.7 million as a federal grant, state federal grant, and that they can see what we do with it, and then we can enlist the help of Sutherland and others, to keep it feeding it to us in an annual grant or something. But
I agree. I know that my company has a lot of time invested in obtaining that 2.7, and at this point it's just reapplying.
right,
We're going to keep doing that.
okay.
Any other questions on cost estimates?
I would be interested in hearing your recommendation for sequencing. I mean, I know you said it makes more sense to do everything all at once. It's less expensive that way, but your recommendation for sequencing.
My recommendation would first be to take care of water would probably be the easiest. And a close second would be stormwater. Water first because of obviously the health reasons. Then stormwater, and then sewer, and then roadway. That's probably not the order that the citizens out there would choose, but from my perspective, that's the order that I would perform them, because then you have to undo less as you move forward. You don't want to necessarily you don't want to put your roads in and then come back have to dig up your roads to put sewer in. Same with stormwater.
This water system, what will we do? Pay for it, build it, give it to Talcum?
I'm not sure about the logistics of that.
Have a storage, we obviously don't have a well or a storage tank out there, so all we would be doing is extending Talcum's water system.
Unless you become a bulk customer at that point, or
Yeah, that's true. You could buy water from Talcum, but I think that's in their service
Sell
area,
it.
so they would have to agree to it, to letting us run water lines. It'd be very disjointed.
We've talked to Telford about that. They're willing to work with the county. They came up with some estimates to run lines to that area east of Broken Bow, and they are willing to work with the county to put the infrastructure in and then serve them. We talked about bulk, whereas the county would keep them as customers. All those are options.
So they would be willing, they'd never said before they'd be willing to run the lines themselves, because nobody lives on a lot of those roads
They're
in the back.
willing to do it if the county does some sort of an assessment or an MSDU.
Yeah, they don't want to pay for
They don't
everything.
want to pay for it. Ah, okay, there we go. There we go.
And their price per lot is a lot higher than what it would be if you did an MSDU.
Any additional questions?
I mean, every option that we have, and I agree with Alan's assessment, is that and that's what I wrote down was water, before you asked that question, was water, stormwater, and then sewer and roads, but, every option we have is a boatload of money.
If you don't have.
And we don't have the wherewithal to do it, other than assessing people, and that's where the rubber meets the road, if you will, and
We'll go. That's the end of the conversation. Right now we're having the hypothetical.
I know you're trying to
but not get to a point. Just moving in a logical direction.
And all of these numbers are based on, like, full build-out to all the lots.
That's correct. The water one's just one section.
Right.
There's water everywhere but one section of Wakulla Gardens right now. But the wells there are some of that's the most pressing need.
If the past history keeps on going, I bet you'll find that a lot of those water lines are actually in the middle of the road. I know we went through this on Magnolia Gardens with South Choppy Water, and Mike, you remember we went through it on Talcott on Wakulla Aaron Road. They actually left the line in the middle of the road, had to come back and cut the road, blah. So that's something else we need to think about. If you go pave the roads, and they say, Talcott, you got to move your water line. No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Food for thought.
Yep. Next up, and we'll come back, and Alan, we may come back to cost. I'm sure we actually will come back to cost, and we'll actually come back. Heather's actually earlier today put together some additional costs, but we'll come back to that also.
Attorney costs.
No, if we actually finance the whole, when we get to the MSBU part, we'll talk about is it just rough estimates of what it would actually work out for people if we did the whole project.
Can I ask one more question? When a new house is built, are they required to put the stub out for sewer?
There's no sewer in there at all right now.
No, I know.
no, there's no dry pipe. There's no requirement.
Because I thought there had been some discussion that even though they were putting in a septic tank, that they had to put something so that if sewer ever did come in, they could be
It would
connected.
really be impossible unless the tank was in the front yard, because
Okay.
you can't have two lines gravity in two different parts of the house.
Nothing that I'm aware of, and I agree one would stay full.
We talked about that, Lynn, but
I
we never
remember
did
it.
anything.
That was Ed Brimner's days, I think. Okay.
I wanted to have Cleve come up again and talk a little bit. And the two things I talk about on here, and we don't have to go into readiness to serve fees right now, but just if we were to put sewer in there, what kind of impact would adding sewer to Wakulla Gardens have on our plan overall? I just wanted to touch on that briefly.
Now, this whole conversation is assuming gravity sewer, too. Low pressure is another option that's a lot cheaper, but it puts, you'd have to set up a maintenance entity, whatever. But gravity sewer, of course, would be about, 20% of the, low pressure would be about 20% of the cost, probably, of gravity, roughly.
3,000 pumps.
Yeah, if we maintain them. Our current code now says that the county does not maintain grinder pumps. So if we just left it like that, to be honest, it's no worse than maintaining a performance-based septic system. I don't think it's got a lot of the same mechanical. Not that, you know what I mean? It's an appliance you got to maintain to treat sewer.
And with the almost 900 homes out there, with probably the typical septic tank in the back, it may set up for a low pressure, because you will have to transfer that water to the front. But the biggest problem we have with our utility system or the wastewater system is we don't have a customer base. So if you was to get those customers, we was to get 3,000 customers, your costs don't go up 3,000 times. in this business, if it costs you about the same amount of money to treat 500,000 gallons of water that does 1,000,000 gallons. I mean, you've got a little bigger tank, maybe a little more power, but your cost is not related to the number of customers that you add on. So, but it would be a good boost in the arm that you would have a customer base, but the downside of it, you'd also it's a debt service that you might have to use to upgrade the plant, and if we could get away that all the infrastructure and all that is paid for either by the community or through grants, and obviously that debt service would be a little bit less, but it would definitely be a shot in the arm to have a larger customer base, and that's if you put the sewer and the water and the roads out there, that area will grow and probably grow pretty fast. It's probably that's probably one of the places that will pick up and go. But does that kind of answer your question?
It does. And one of the things that you anticipate, if we were to put sewer out there, we probably have to start. And I was just going to say, we probably also have to start looking at readiness to serve fees, which means if people aren't connected to the sewer, but we're providing sewer in front of their lot or their house, that they'd have to be paying an annual fee.
Even a vacant lot?
Even a vacant lot.
A lot of utilities do that
Because
you're providing service in front of their house.
Now, I know, I don't want to get too far off track. I know when I lived in Tallahassee, I paid a readiness to serve, but that was because there was a sewer line out there, and I was in a rental house, but it was on a septic tank. So you still paid a readiness to serve because the line was there. And,
If there's not a house there.
Did you say they're hard to collect?
Unless you're providing other, like in Tallahassee, it's on your utility bill, so if you don't pay that, they're going to shut off your electricity. If you don't have if you don't have a way to enforce it, they are difficult to collect.
I wouldn't have so much grief with that if the county paid for the sewer. When this issue came before, what I really had grief was going into the subdivision where the developer built the sewer, and then you're going to start charging him a readiness to serve fee for something he paid for. But in this case, if the county is paying for it.
and do you think if we, and I guess the other question is, just for clarification, if we expand the sewer through the Wakulla Gardens, you'd anticipate we actually need to expand our wastewater treatment center?
You would have to expand the wastewater plant, where we've talked about it today, is 600,000 gallons more a day. Either expand the treatment plant you have now or build a second treatment plant somewhere else.
And if we don't expand the Wakulla Gardens, how long before we have to expand our wastewater treatment center?
We due to the reduction in growth in this county, we're in the process of revising our general permit, which is going to substantially reduce the growth. We've got time in our wastewater plant. We're looking at 10 years, based on the way the growth is now. But if you have a building spurt, then it's all out the window. But we're actually doing this now. We've got some people revising the growth estimates on our capacity analysis report. We've met with DEP, and we owe them a letter. We're actually a little bit behind on submitting this capacity analysis report, but it's when this report was done 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you still had you're still seeing the growth in the county based on historical data. Of course, now it's totally changed.
How many gallons per day are we running through it now?
We've had some anomalies in the plant that is not supported, which indicates high flow, but it's not supported by the power usage of the pumps pump into the plant. So we're still probably 420,000 gallons, 4,200 gallons a day.
And it's 600?
600.
Passing.
Yeah, we got some money, and we know we got talcum coming in at 30,000 gallons a day. We're at 0.24 MGD. Is what we're at.
It seems to me like this is all very good and whatever, but we can't go to step 2 or step 3 or step 4 until we get rid of step 1. Step 1's the water. That seems to be where we should just concentrate on. These other things are somewhere else water's down the road. These other things are farther down the road. So even looking at them is, I guess it's okay. But if you're going to put any work out, you put out the work on water, and let the other things, unless it just drops in your hand. But Alan just said that water was the first thing that we need.
Well, and stormwater is pretty high up there also. There's some severe flooding in Wakulla Gardens.
Well, we can't do any of these because we don't have any money. So my feeling is we ought to just pick one that's needed and do it, or as best we can.
And we're coming to that conversation near the shortly. We're going to do fairly quickly. But yeah, we'll touch on that next. Thank you, Cleve. I want to talk some. I have Heather helping me with this conversation. The next two conversations. You have two other attachments in the packet, and they're in opposite order of how we're discussing them. The first one's information about CRAs, and then the second one's unity of title. One of the major problems we have with Wakulla Gardens is that it is platted at a density thicker than we would plat it today.
Without infrastructure.
Is that a planning term?
Okay, but it's overplatted for how we would have it zoned today. One of the things that we could try and do, and I think we should be looking at trying to do, is looking at a way to try and get people who own lots side by side to try and do unity of title and combine those lots and reduce the density in Wakulla Gardens. Heather, do you want to talk some about that? Or just explain how it would work and some of the challenges we might face?
The key to making that work is to providing some sort of incentive for doing so. Because there's not really going to be for example, it's not going to instantly result in some sort of property tax savings or anything like that. If you did want to encourage people to combine lots, they'd be giving up development rights on their individually on. If they combine two lots, they'd be giving up development rights on one of them. You would ideally do that with either some sort of incentive, either in the development review process, and we haven't really thought that out, we're just throwing that out there, or if you were going to look at doing an MSBU, it would be a big incentive because they combine lots, they would just pay for one lot instead of for two.
Melissa, would you come up, because I have some questions you might be able to help with.
If we were to do something like this, and I talk about this some further on, I think in my notes at the end, or if we move forward with any of these ideas, I think it'd be worth trying to have some people go door to door and talk to people that live out there.
I got a better idea than that.
Okay, and I guess we'll wait about it, but just trying to make sure that we're getting the message out. I think we could easily target people, and Heather mentioned to me this actually might not work as well as I thought it would, that you could have people who own property next door to each other, so there are two Randy Merritt lots. I can, right next to each other, I can say, Randy, you own these two lots, why don't you combine them? And then we combine them for no additional cost. We do that paperwork.
That's part of my plan.
You could also take a lot where you got two people on either side of a lot. They could split that lot between them and just add that to there.
Well, if they wanted to buy the lot from whoever owned it, or
yeah, they could increase their lot by half.
But that could become more problematic because then you'd have to replat.
Yeah, that would be.
That right now they're platted lots, so we can do this and it's no cost basically. If you start dividing existing lots and splitting them between people, that's going to increase the cost for the citizens who live there. Heather pointed out something I was not aware of. I believe it was you who mentioned it a few minutes ago, earlier today, that some of the lots in Wakulla Gardens might be Randy Merritt owns one and Merritt LLC owns the one next to it, which would mean that we couldn't just easily say every lot door to door. It may not work as well as I thought it would. There may be a little bit more, so we have to actually physically review things.
Here again, on the splitting of the lot, if you and I owned one and Mike was in the middle, if we want to pay the cost to do it, we should make that available to the people.
Yeah, but
it's their choice.
I don't disagree with you. I think the problem is going to be is then it has to be resurveyed, and that's going to
still their choice.
It's still they could do that right now.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is if we, for whatever reason, when we go to whatever ends, if we're going to combine lots, I think the county should offer to come in and replat it. Go ahead and do it all at one time. Combine the half lots or quarter lots or whatever you're going to do, or the 10 lots, because with the unity of title, they're getting a benefit by doing the unity of title. So it's not like it'll ever be undone, I guess, unless would they,
They'd have to come back and the county would have to release it.
that we'd have to release it, but then everybody else would scream out there, why did you release them?
Most time, once you do unity title, it's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we did an assessment, let's say we did $4,000 per household, this house has 5 lots, they want to clear up the title on one of them, if we just release it and they've only paid one assessment,
They'd have to pay.
we'd have to come back and charge them another assessment, I guess.
Yeah.
So you'd have to ride with it the rest of the
Yeah,
way.
once it's done, it's gotta be done.
Commissioner Arntz?
Okay. Well, I'm glad this is one of the things you're including. We already tried this, if no one remembers. We sent out a trim notice enclosure to every property owner in Wakulla Gardens, and we encouraged them to merge adjacent lots if at least one lot has no house. And it said the benefits of merging lots: if you own 2 or more contiguous touching lots in one of these subdivisions, we actually did it for all 5 of our overplatted, you may combine them into one residential lot. Your property taxes may be lower than if the lots are kept separate. Some of your processing fees may be waived by the county. The lot will have a larger buildable area and the neighborhood will be improved. And Lindsay had agreed to waive or lower the fees for doing that, and I've forgotten the numbers now. Do you remember how many people responded saying they wanted to merge lots and how many actually did?
I don't recall that number offhand. I apologize. It doesn't seem like it was an overly large number of property owners. Maybe, I'm thinking probably less than 50, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
I know there were more who wanted to merge than donate. I remember that, but
There were like 12 potential donations, and then we kept calling them and nobody followed through.
The incentive is to seek to keep.
right, I think that's what we didn't do before, but, Alan's talking about sending people around door to door. This is a mechanism we used before and could use again, is sending it out with the trim notices, but I think the key is going to be, we got some response, and I thought you had worked out already a system. I mean, I don't know if this is already, or some version of this is already in use, and how you've adjusted the fees, and you might want to get those, make those available to people, and also the numbers, how many it worked with. But I agree, if we do it again, we need to try and have, a more compelling reason to do it, I guess, or incentive.
And I know people are still interested because, surprisingly enough, I actually got a call from a citizen today who owns property in Wakulla Gardens and was asking the status of that because they were interested in either having the county purchase or they may be willing to donate.
Okay.
So the interest is still there.
Okay, and the other thing along the same topic is, and this is going back in history, and I may need some help from people like Mike who may remember these discussions, but originally it was set up in our comp plan, whereas if you owned multiple lots, you could only develop one house on those multiple contiguous lots. Even though that was in the comp plan or whatever, that wasn't the practice, and people were and the board at that time, I think Commissioner Bremner maybe was on, I don't know, elected to reverse that.
Correct, in about 2008, I believe.
And I've actually had a number of conversations about restoring the original, going back to what was originally set, but I don't know what would be involved. And I know Lindsay said the horse is out of the barn or whatever, but if that's still a viable alternative, I don't know.
Heather, would you like to provide some insight on that? Do you have any insight on being able to require people to have 2 lots to build a house?
That's not what she's saying.
No?
It was what was originally in with the comp plan.
Right.
Can you provide us more information about if you own multiple lots, you could still only build one house?
Right, that was a requirement in the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. I believe it was an original requirement from 1995, and then it was removed through a comp plan amendment in about 2008 or so. And DCA was in support of us removing that at the time. I'm not sure what we would encounter with the state at this level. I don't know that there would be any arguments from that end, quite honestly, since it would not affect a significant resource of regional importance, a significant natural resource, but
I think it was a mistake that they got rid of that. Even they should have been following it all along. When they found out they weren't following it, rather than changing the future land use to match what their practice was, they really should have just started following what was in the code or the.
Well, I'm sorry. And it was a mixed bag too, because you have some individuals who may own 5 or 6 lots, and then you have a lot of individuals that only own 1 lot, and they've already got a house on their 1 lot, and people have been paying property taxes on 6 lots perhaps, and each of them have been assessed as being built on it.
Yeah, I don't see how you can take a person's property. You would just be taking their property. When I've bought a lot and I bought it according to the terms of whatever, you just can't arbitrarily come in and say, well, you've got a lot, but you can't build on it anymore.
Well, it may have to
But
be.
there's consequences for that.
Yeah, you
And it
can
may
do a lot of things, but I don't think that's one of them you should do.
Well, and it may be just for people who have owned lots since that was originally in place, then it changed, and if it goes back, it really hasn't affected them unless they've paid more taxes. I don't know, but
I think you would, at a minimum, we would need to look at that to see if there are Bert Harris problems with it. There most likely are. The wording of it is not, I don't have that at the top of my head, so I don't want to look at that.
I would encourage then, Alan, if you're continuing to run forward with this, that maybe you look, explore that, whether that's a possibility, because I didn't see that on.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at that. I'm under the impression that that's something we couldn't do. For some reason, I was under the impression we couldn't do that any longer.
I think you've got I don't know how many of those lots are owned by builders. Quite a few.
I would say quite a few.
Then there's where you give your incentive. You give that builder an incentive to combine 2 lots. He understands business. He has $1 to spend, but basically give that builder some good incentive to put 2 together. It makes it, because if you've got a person who hadn't got a dime, they're not looking to add to their property. They're having to buy groceries next week. But a builder is going to be able to sell a better lot, make more money, and I would start off right with the builders and get and there's probably not 20 of them, 10 of them, and say what can we do? What can we do to get you to combine 2 or 3 of your lots? Figure out a way of doing that, and figure out what it's worth to us to have them do that. And
There's more of us sitting up here than builders building Wakulla Gardens.
sir.
There's more of us sitting up here than there are builders building Wakulla Gardens right now.
Well, builders, let's say builders who own lots.
I understand.
Yeah, builders who own lots. Just be creative with a builder.
Okay, and I think that's coming up towards our next conversation, but I want to touch on one more thing before we started discussing. I want to touch on 2 more quick things before we start going into what we should be doing. Next on our rough agenda is just a brief conversation on CRAs, Community Redevelopment Agencies. I've got Heather down to help talk about that one also. That's the first attachment you have in the packet. It's a multi-page information. It's a memorandum from Heather Insanosa on CRAs. And I know we're also discussing CRAs throughout the county right now. We've got a few that exist. So I know that already exist. And I know we're talking about changing, removing, putting in, I guess we have 2 CRAs right now that exist in the county. And I know we're talking about changing one and maybe adding additionals.
Didn't Ed suggest this too, Mike?
We have, St. Mark's has a CRA, Crawfordville and Panacea one CRA.
Well, Panacea has one that is,
Well,
they're probably redoing it and making it better. Yeah, it's getting made better, but there's one that is,
oh, I know, I had Heather review it.
Yeah.
It never was established.
okay. So, okay, I was counting it and perhaps I was wrong. Thank you, Commissioner Arts. Yes, and my understanding, and just because I talked with Mr. Pisaki at the beginning of the meeting, and he said that Ed Rimmer had talked about putting a CRA around Wakulla Gardens, with the goal being for him to make these infrastructure improvements in Wakulla Gardens. I don't think that, when I talk, some of the things I see coming out of a CRA would be that if we, let's say we move forward with some of these other improvements, the CRA could do something like just make the neighborhood nicer, not necessarily making these major infrastructure improvements. Put in sidewalks, things that aren't on this list.
Wasn't there like a big to-do about it also, like a big meeting, public meeting?
January 12, 2008, I looked at the DVD today.
And it was called for a big community
120
synergy.
people were here.
How many?
120?
But yeah, let's have Heather talk a little bit about CRAs and some of her thoughts on how this could work. And I know I talked with David some. If he has input he'd like to. Okay, it's the last one. There's two more quick talks.
CRAs, real briefly, are just community redevelopment agencies. They're authorized under Chapter 163 of state statutes. As a charter county, you have the ability to create CRAs. In fact, you are the only entity in the county right now who has the ability to create CRAs. Since you're a charter county, cities cannot create them without you giving them that authority at this point. You could create a CRA for Wakulla Gardens. There's a lot of notices, not a lot of notice stuff in here that you don't need to pay that much attention to. If you decide to go forward, staff would be able to handle that for you. But in general, you would have to come up with a community redevelopment plan. You would identify the slum or the blighted area. And when I say slum or blighted, I don't mean necessarily that it has to be what you typically would think of when you thought of a slum, because Wakulla Gardens is not that. But you could show that there are, there's a utility blight, central infrastructure blight, roadway blight, things like that. Those have been found to be legally sufficient in the state to show blight. You would then create the CRA, and then the key to this would be coming up with your plan for what you did want to fund, and then you establish basically a tax increment would go. Once you established a trust fund, whatever percentage of that increment that it's difficult to explain. Basically, 95% of the difference between the ad valorem taxes levied by the taxing authority each year within the redevelopment area, and then the ad valorem taxes that would have been produced by the same millage rate prior to the creation of the redevelopment. That delta goes into the redevelopment trust fund, and you use that money to provide the needed infrastructure that is targeted in your plan.
But the flip side of that is, instead of us being able to use the tax dollars from Wakulla Gardens to do something else in the county, it can only be used there. So it's
Just
not like
that
free,
portion.
You're right, but it's not free money.
It's not free money. There are a couple of things that as a chartered county we have the ability to do that are different. One, we could cap the amount of money that comes out of the CRA. So let's say right now you have an empty lot. Someone puts a $200,000 house on that empty lot, so the property value goes up by $200,000. We could say that the first $100,000 of improvements, the taxable property of the value of that comes to Wakulla County. Anything above that delta change would go towards the CRA. There's different things we could look at if we wanted to pursue this further. It's a longer conversation, but I just want to make sure we were thinking about it. Commissioner Arts?
Yeah, I share the kind of Randy's concerns. If we end up with a CRA in Crawfordville, one in Panacea, and one in Wakulla Gardens, how is that going to affect the county's total tax base? And how are we going to be able to provide some of the things that we currently are providing or need to continue to provide? And somebody needs to look carefully at those numbers, or otherwise we could well end up in trouble.
Heather, when you're dealing with a CRA, this is a quick question I should have asked you earlier, and I apologize for bringing it to you right now. I remember this from an earlier conversation with someone. I don't remember the answer. As density increases, let's say another 1,000 people move into Wakulla Gardens, and we have a CRA there. Could part of that CRA fund go towards things like security? Like, could we put some of it towards police, or does it have to be built on infrastructure there?
There are provisions in 163 for neighborhood security as well. It's going to depend on how you structure your plan and how you structure the CRA.
You can structure them in a way where some of the costs can go to the sheriff department, go to libraries, and go to things. It just has to directly benefit back that area. But
Well, it's typically infrastructure.
impact fees, another conversation that we continue to have in the community. But yeah. And I know, and Randy's anxious to start talking, as am I, with actually having more discussion amongst ourselves. So I want to touch briefly on last thing on my notes of what I want to discuss tonight is a localized MSBU. This would be looking at the different cost items that we have and assigning a per lot, letting the people, what I would like to see happen is letting the property owners have a vote. If they decided to vote that they'd like to make these improvements, they'd have the ability to tax on a per lot basis themselves to make the improvements, so that they could make Wakulla Gardens. If we did all these things, one of the most desirable places to live in the community. If all of a sudden you put Wakulla Gardens in there and they've got paved roads, sewer and water, and stormwater, and 800 lots have gone to making stormwater parks, you're starting to make a really nice neighborhood where you're going to have a lot of people enjoy having that be their first home. You already have a lot of people who enjoy making their first home, but you might see more, and you encourage more building out. If we did that, all of a sudden charging a per lot fee, you'll see a lot of people want to join their lots together. That'll quickly incentivize that. But also when you join lots together, that makes the per lot fee probably go up some because the costs don't go down for the improvements. Some of the costs, there'll be some minimal cost reductions, but some of the costs will stay the same. Like paving the roads will be the same if there's one lot in Wakulla Gardens or if there's 8,000 lots in Wakulla Gardens. Heather, do you want to talk some about that? I know you also did some rough estimates. Earlier today, when our last meeting I had before the meeting, this workshop, Heather did some numbers of what she would estimate the cost would be annually and monthly in financing if we were to do this for the whole thing with all the lots currently there.
At MSB, you already have an ordinance on the books that allows neighborhoods to come forward and voluntarily petition to have an MSB established, to have neighborhood improvements made, whether that's road paving or beautification or utilities. You could use that process here, a county-driven process where you'd send ballots out, or you could mandatorily impose it. That's the will of the board. Some of the numbers that I ran based upon Alan's $34 million estimate to do it all.
Alan Wise's.
Yeah, Alan Wise, sorry. Except I took out the water construction because water's on a smaller area, so we can't really apportion that among all 37,000 lots.
700.
I had to assumed 30-year debt, which you could get if you did a bond. If you did a USDA loan, if you could get it, it would be 40 years, so that would be a way to push it out further. Assuming 4%, and assuming that all 37,038 lots are in, which we know is not really a valid assumption. Some of them are going to fall out.
3,700.
Yeah, 36, sorry. The price per year for sewer, stormwater, and roadway, and this includes the sewer tap fees. So that
Which
your
drove this
plant
price up.
could be financed to be upgraded. So that takes the 34 million up to about 48 million. The price per year for 30 years at 4% would be about $822 per year per lot.
820.
822. That's about right about $70 per month.
Now, that doesn't include the cost for the water and the sewer.
It does not include water. Most of the lots out there already have water,
Yeah.
so that's why I took that out.
They would still have a water and sewer bill.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, most of them already have a water bill,
Yeah.
but the sewer bill would be a new bill.
But the sewer bill is usually twice what the water bill is.
Now, if we got 3% money, that takes it down to $726 per year, or about $60 a month.
So it'd be a $60 a month bill, increase in their mortgage per lot.
One of the challenges you would have is actually getting financing for this, because when I did the really rough math, this is all really rough, even these cost estimates are rough, and so in all likelihood, we'd hopefully see the costs come down, because try and be conservative. But doing some rough math, before financing, the prepayment amount would be about $12,000 per lot if they wanted to pay up front and get out of the program entirely. And that's more than the value of many of these vacant lots. So I think you'd be very hard pressed to get a bank to finance this. It'd be hard to sell bonds.
So, okay. And now the idea, and okay, thank you, Heather. And at this point, we're going to have conversation amongst ourselves. And if there's any citizen are there citizens who want to talk on this here today? Sure. Okay, so we might come, we'll try and, I'll give you time to talk after we've spoken. We're going to try and keep it fast conversation. So my idea, two conversations to have. One, that's the cost if we do everything. And sewer, and the tap fees for the sewer are a large chunk of that. That drove the price up from what you see before you from the 34 million to, it went from 34 million to 48 million?
Yeah.
But that's the tap fees, which are coming, and they're only going to go up. Do you want to, that's if you do everything. And secondly, if we do this, so we could lower the cost by only doing something like stormwater, or if we get the stormwater grant, lowering, those would see some reductions in cost. The idea being that we would let the citizens of the property owners in Wakulla Gardens vote on a per lot basis, and see if they came back at either what we have currently drawn is 2/3 vote to say they want to do it. And truthfully, I don't anticipate it passing in Wakulla Gardens, but it's a conversation to have. But it would get everybody current and updated, and they'd understand what's going on better if they saw all the prices and the breakdown and information. Or if we wanted to do piece by piece and say we want to do stormwater, and what would a stormwater fee just for Wakulla Gardens be?
What would be the cost of having the citizens vote on this?
I don't have that
I'll
cost.
check into that. When it's my turn.
Yep. And now I will toss it over. I've presented
We got 7
information.
minutes left. I'll be very
There's
brief.
as much time as you need, Randy.
I thought a lot about this, and I came to pretty much the same conclusion y'all did. And here's how I would do it. Follow the infrastructure the framework of ordinance 88-1, which is, I assume that's what you're talking about. It's been revised, but it's the same one Brook Forest used, and so forth. I talked to Amazing Mail Solutions, and to send out a postcard to every property owner out there, maybe $600-700. And what I would do is, here's your list. Would you be willing to pay $100 a year for paving your road? Yes or no? Would you be willing to pay X for sewer? Would you be willing X for stormwater? And then get the petitions back in, and then I think we'd have the moral standing to move ahead with it and say, all right, instead of people signing a petition doing it like we do with the ordinance, this would serve as a petition, even though it probably wouldn't be legal, but then we say, all right, the citizens of Wakulla Gardens have said they want their roads paved, they want stormwater, they don't want sewer, whatever, and we'll move down that road. If they all vote against it, then I'm done with the issue. If that's the way we got to do it, if Wakulla Gardens residents don't want to pay for it, then that's just the way it is. You live on a dirt road.
Throw in there the fact that they're going to pay another $60 for the sewer.
They may not want to pay that. The sewer's probably the largest assessment they'll pay, and they may say, I'm not willing to pay $400 a year to have sewer, but I am willing to pay $150 a year to have stormwater and roads.
I want to throw one more thing out there, and I apologize. I don't think I put this in the notes either. I think all of Wakulla Gardens will say they want their road paved, but I think the most important things we do in there is the same order that Alan Wise listed: city water utility, stormwater utility, sewer utility, and then road paving.
Well, like Heather said, the water, you really can't throw that in there, because you can't ask all of Wakulla Gardens to pay for a certain section of it. Okay,
Yeah, but
fine.
That's my concern. I think they'll say pave the roads, and
At some point, though, we got to just say,
no, you're right.
maybe we're not going to get sewer in Wakulla.
Why wouldn't
Maybe we're not gonna get it.
you just put one item out? Would you like to have
Well,
like to have water.
Because what if because what Alan just said, if you just put one item out, put roads out, yeah, we'll do that. All right, you pay the roads, then you go put another item out. Would you pay for sewer? Sure. All right, let's go dig the road back.
Well, you can't put the cart before the horse.
Right. That's why I'd like to put them all on a card. Which ones are you willing to pay for? And if they're not willing to pay for sewer, then we'll just drop it. That's just what I think.
Well, that's good.
And the incentive, Ms. Arts, to combine lots then is to say you own 3 lots, all right? Say you own 10 lots, and you're going to get assessed $200 a year on each lot, or you can get assessed $200 a year on one lot. Take your pick. I'll guarantee you they'll combine them lots into one. That would be a huge incentive to combine lots. And if it's a sorry lot that's in a swamp, you can pay $200 a year assessment, or you can give it to the county and pay nothing. But if we had the, whatever the percentage is by ordinance, I think it's 60, is it 2/3 majority by the ordinance?
It is, yeah, it's used to
Where a neighborhood can assess
2/3, yeah.
themselves. All right, if we got 66, my big question is, do we count the number of responses? Do we count the yes and no's versus responses received, or do we count the yeses versus number of lots out there?
Responses received.
Okay, so if 66% of the responses received says we're willing to pay for this, this, and this, then let's move forward. If they're not, let's just forget about it and stop talking about it. We've been talking about this for years.
And that's where my
And
explanation.
I appreciate you.
That's
exactly the same conclusion.
Well, when my idea, I might go a little more than a postcard, spend the extra money to send them something that says these are the costs. So I want people to realize.
Yeah.
I want people to realize that
And
this is a expensive project, and if you say no to this, it probably won't happen for a long time.
That's exactly how the ordinance reads. If we follow it, you've got to at least estimate the cost.
Yeah.
And then if the board does decide to move forward, then you've got to really zero in on the exact cost. And you got to have hearings and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So there is a framework to go down that road. Because I'm not willing personally to pledge tax dollars from the whole county to go and pave roads of Wakulla Gardens. Maybe a couple of the major ones, sure. But not the whole thing. Personally, I don't think they'll.
Sorry, real quickly, section 15.027 of your code is the voluntary assessment. The initial percentage is basically it's a petition, and you could change this if you needed to, since this is sort of county driven. That's the 51% to go forward and refine the costs, and then it's the 66%.
Well, my point is there is a framework in place. All we need to do is follow it. Maybe modify it instead of a petition, be responses to. I don't think a special election. I talked to Buddy about this. That'd be kind of tough, but the postcard would be really easy.
Mm-hmm.
And you already have a ballot form, not for a county, informal county ballot where they could vote yes or no on various
things. You pay for a
things.
stamp on it. I mean, if you're that interested, you can spring 40-something cents for a stamp and send it back to the county, and then we'll have somebody like Alan maybe count up all the responses and check yes or no.
We can have Buddy count them, can't we?
Oh, no.
Commissioner Arndt?
That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of having the people in Wakulla Gardens vote, even though I think the price tag's going to be too high and that most people will probably vote no. But I don't agree with I think you need to have them do everything, because if you give people the option of voting for roads, that's what they'll vote for, but that's irresponsible for us to put roads in and when we haven't addressed stormwater and we haven't addressed sewer or cluster systems or whatever. So
well, maybe you could combine roads and stormwater then.
If you've got to have roads and you got something else you got to have before you put the roads in, those things that you have to have together, you'll have to put together. But I think that anything that you can break outside as a one issue maybe should be treated as.
I think sewer's the killer for it, because you put out $800 a year, I guarantee you 99% of them are going to be no. But just from talking to some people that live there, if it was like $150 or $200 a year, yeah. A lot of people I talk to be willing to pay that, and maybe we just can't get sewer in Wakulla Gardens. Maybe that's just the way it is.
Alan, stormwater would be something you could conceivably just do on its own.
Yes. And there's a lot of lot acquisition in stormwater, getting easements between lots. which we could be working on that now, by the way,
You are.
to get from one road to another. And, you know, I think the excavation number may be a little inflated, $4 million for excavation, but, you know, we could hone these numbers down, of course, and then ask people.
Yeah, they're good numbers, but I would encourage you to start to move forward with this more conversation.
But the only problem with doing stormwater, I don't want to get too much of an engineering conversation, the only problem with doing stormwater without doing the roads, paving the roads, and stabilizing is that the culverts will fill up with dirt, the erosion still keeps going.
Well, you gotta put those things together that have to work together.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
That's actually a good transition. Another conversation that came up today, so talking about Wakulla Gardens, and I'll let Cleve or David or Alan talk about another idea that's being discussed for something we can do now. Since we've put the road base down Wakulla Gardens, there's a sealant we might be able to use to cut down on the dust to make them a little more drivable for people. That's fairly inexpensive. I don't know who'd like to talk on that.
Is that the same stuff we put on
Am I using the wrong word by
Jasper
saying
Thomas? Years ago, we put it on Jasper Thomas. Remember Don had it put down?
Binding agent.
Attractive
Yeah,
prime.
then we came back and put
Cleve
cold
can-
mix on it.
This is it's a new product that DOT is requiring to be put on using their road projects for us. It's called a tackless tack. It drives fast. C.W. Roberts said they have used it in what? Freeport on very similar type roads.
It's black.
Well, that stuff on Jasper Thomas was too, but it made potholes.
It'll gray out.
But the thing about this product is that a road that we've already got mixed, it was Lonnie Raker Lane. That would be one of the test roads, and choose some roads in Wakulla. No, Lonnie Raker is a road that we mixed the gravel into the sand first, and it's holding up well, but possibly that one and a couple of Wakulla Gardens. But for $2,300 a mile, you spray this material over there, and it binds up. And C.W. Roberts is saying that they're getting good results for it on the type roads we have. It suppresses the dust, and if you have to come back in there and redo it in a year, you're going to have to come in there and fill it up again, lay it back down, and do it again. But
I think calcium chloride costs almost that much, doesn't it?
calcium chloride is last time we used it, it's $5,000 a mile, and you got
And it doesn't last nowhere
No.
years long.
no this
$2,300 a mile times 21 miles for 1 year?
Well, that's what we're looking at. I mean,
It's not a permanent
could be-
solution.
It would be, no, it's not a permanent, it'd be something we do all along, but the idea is to do some tests.
The biggest thing we got to try it.
Yeah.
We made
One of the things that came out of tonight's workshop, if we wanted to ask them to bring it back at another meeting, so that we could maybe move forward and experiment on some of the major traffic roads. It's cheaper than paving.
You have a couple of circular roads that hit the heaviest traffic in Wakulla Gardens.
And we've actually got some roads identified that we would want to experiment on.
I think it's a good idea to
In Wakulla Gardens.
try and bring it forward to see how it would work.
Yeah, the idea, one of the things going to be a holdup is the amount of time it's going to take Cleve's crew to actually rip it up, mix it, and set the road back down. That's, putting the tackless prime on it is that's fast, but that's going to be what'll take the most time.
To do a test, you don't have to do 10 mile or 5 mile. You can
Well,
go
that-
That's why we're going to do about 3.5 miles, 4 miles, something like
we're
that.
going to do it on different type of roads. The Lonnie Raker Lane is a road where you'll have faster straight line traffic, and Wakulla Gardens you're going to have more of the residential.
A real problem though is Wakulla Gardens.
Yeah. But we've got if this application, we're looking at this for 21 miles of roads in Wakulla Gardens at some point in time. If we get good results, but I think we just threw out these ideas to have different types of roads. Because Wakulla Gardens, you're going to have the stop signs where you're going to have traffic coming up that's stopping more often, see how it holds up to the pressure of the tires stopping, and then with the Lonnie Raker Lane, you want to see how it holds up to the speed because it's a straight road.
Curves are a big problem too.
Yeah.
Anytime you have.
But anyway, we're not. Those are some ideas that we kicked around, and if we have to bring this back, but and we could definitely choose other roads, but we want to just get for the amount of money we're talking about doing, just try it. And if it don't work, we just till it up and lay it back down, and it's that may bind up some of the material to hold down.
This could help our roads budget go a little further.
But it's a temporary.
It's
It's a
temporary.
maintenance thing, basically.
Well, and then if we so choose in the future to go ahead and pave some of these roads and put an 1.5 inch paving, we can always pave on top of this super pave, and we don't have to do anything, and so we can leave it paved.
It creates, I mean, that's the whole, when we
Yeah.
put the aggregate in the Wakulla Gardens to start with, it was always meant to be temporary, to be incorporated into a
Right.
bigger project.
Did you put your rock down in Wakulla on a lime rock base, or it's just sand?
On sand.
That's the reason then to mix it back up, to mix it in the sand,
We
to create
were-
to create your limestone base.
We had
That's what I
originally
asked for a little bit
planned
more
on
direction to bring back.
doing some mixing,
Thank you.
but we've been in this extended drought, and it's just, we just never really had enough moisture to do that volume of mixing.
So, thank you, Cleve. I wanted to just sort of get some head nods for direction for our minutes to come back so we can figure out what direction y'all think we should be going. It sounded to me like there seemed some support for trying to do some sort of mailing on the MSBU. Would there be any objection to having staff bring that back for a future?
Survey.
To do the vote, to see about, like, this.
Randy suggested
Yes,
do
what
it,
Randy
yes.
suggested.
I'm very supportive of that.
Yeah, okay, it'd be, they'd get the vote on if they'd want to see it and impose
I
the
think
fees on
you ought to
themselves.
put those things together that have to go together, though I don't think it does a whole.
It needs to be worded carefully.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to reach out with Heather and our
I
staff.
think it's just two things myself. It's roads and stormwater and sewer. They don't have to go together. I mean, roads and stormwater, I think, have to go together, but they don't have to go together with sewer. So you could have one and not have the other.
Yes.
Oh, I don't see that.
Yeah, you can pave a road without sewer.
Well, but
What are you
we're
going to
gonna-
put sewer in?
Not put sewer in.
We're not gonna put,
Forget about it.
well, I wanna see if the people want it first. I agree with what you're saying, Lynn, but
If they want to pay for it, let's
people
put
aren't
it in
gonna
there.
want sewer. They're gonna want roads paved and stormwater.
But the county needs
Well-
water quality
Then
protected.
where are we gonna get the money? We're back to the money
Well, but-
question again.
Well, whatever you do, you just
I'm not
can't
gonna
tear the
say
road
that.
up.
Okay.
I agree, Lynn, but how do you pay for it?
Well, I'll work up a potential ballot and mailing and bring it back to the board.
And we'll have the chance to have this conversation a little more, and I encourage everybody to reach out and talk to Heather about this more, because I think stormwater could go on its own. I think if you put roads down, then sewer pretty much is gone for a long
And
time.
let's not forget that we are requiring people to put in performance-based septic systems, which aren't as good as a well-run wastewater plant, but are a lot better than a septic tank.
All right, what about, is there an option that we can require anyone new coming in to have to accept the MSBU for the whole thing? Can we make a distinction between existing residents versus people coming
You're
in?
putting up facility.
I don't see how you could make them pay for something that's not there. You know, I mean, if we pave the roads and somebody moves in, you can't say, well, you gotta pay a sewer assessment too, not only a road assessment.
Well, the MSBU's making people pay
So
for
you're
things
saying-
that aren't there.
So you're saying vacant lots make them pay for sewer, but the people that are living there?
Or put a moratorium on so we don't put in another 2,000 septic tanks, because the performance-based ones that are being built there are not doing a very good job of reducing nitrogen. So, I mean,
I wouldn't support that. I understand if you do, and I appreciate that.
well, and the other thing is to look at the cost of, if not sewer, putting in a cluster system for those people, which according to PO was going to be 2/3 the cost. Now, I don't know if that's
Or a low
really
pressure
true or
sewer.
not.
It'd be a lot cheaper too.
Something, but I think for us to say, we're gonna, for a relatively small amount of money, we're gonna take care of, stormwater, and we're gonna pave the roads, then we're gonna have more build out, more water pollution, and that, I mean, I can't support that. That's not the right thing to do.
I don't know if we have water pollution.
We do.
That's, okay. Okay, I would encourage, as we move forward with this conversation, and we're trying to figure out what the best thing to do, I would encourage each person with their own ideas to talk with our experts and our attorney so that we have different proposals to look at when we bring this back up. That would be my suggestion. So we can try and figure out what will work best for the community. Did anybody have interest in trying to pursue a CRA for the neighborhood for bring it back? Okay. Did anyone have any strong objections to at least having brought back the idea for a test on the sealant for the roads?
I'd like to see us go forward with that. I just want to let the administrator
Okay, excellent.
get it done.
I think that's a good idea also. I just wanted to
Test trip.
As
talk.
long as we can afford it without.
Yeah, I'd like to see some there. And
We've got that.
all
I
right.
also like the idea, it didn't come out in the meeting, about informing people in Wakulla Gardens and these other people that, what the realistic expectations are, because people tell me all the time, their realtors told them the roads would be paved in a year.
Well, and I'd like
We can't do anything about this.
I'd like with the mailing. I'd like that to be part of the information that comes out. These are the costs. If you vote no on this, the expectations for this aren't there. I mean, I'd like an educational piece to go out with the mailing, but we'll see that when it comes back up. But that'd be part of it for me. So each of the property owners says, by voting no at this time, when interest rates are the lowest and costs are the lowest, it could be another decade to 2 decades before you see the improvements without any change. There's no foreseeable infrastructure improvements coming to your neighborhood. I know I wanted to end real quick. Ron, if you could be very brief, Ron.
30 seconds.
That's all. Okay. And then, thank you. And then we'll transition. I appreciate all of your time and patience. I know this is a discussion we've had many times.
Yeah, the big issue I'll just address is the water issue. Commissioner Stewart, Randy, all of us have been dealing with Telquin for years with no luck. Telquin is not serving this county. If they had, they would have put they would have put water lines in. The water system at Shell Point, as you all know, is a disaster. They haven't done anything to doing the pressure thing. So to me, I think it's time to look to get another water provider in there to see if somebody else, whether it's City Tallahassee or Sopchoppy, to come in and take it over and put the infrastructure in and actually service the community.
I think it's a good point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Can our attorney comment? Is that something that's doable?
I mean, it's doable. You have the power of eminent domain, but it's not
Easy.
feasible unless you have a lot of money you're able to spend on it. We've looked at, just today I pulled out the conditional use that Telquin has for that water and for their sewer area. Those are going to be difficult to overcome because they were granted conditional uses with no conditions. So,
We're going to be having further discussions with Talcon at the first of the year. They have a new general manager that's starting in late November, December, or whatever.
yeah, within the next couple of weeks, let them get on their feet. I've already asked their attorney to set up a meeting so we can discuss some of these options with
We've
them.
got some options and stuff we want to discuss with them, so we're working on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on into the